The Lord is good all the time, and he is worthy of our praise. You may be seated in the presence of our God. It is always a joy to have the privilege to gather and worship and to share in a space that is dear to me, because there are some people here that are dear to me, and because they're dear, the Bridge Church is dear. And I'm excited and delighted for the opportunity to gather in the Lord's house on this day. When your pastor extended the invitation to me, and I did a quick glance at my calendar, and I didn't see anything on my calendar for the evening, and I immediately said yes. And then I was sharing with my wife about having to come and share here. She said, you know, the reason there's nothing on your schedule for the evening because you will be on a plane headed back home. And I totally forgot that I was going to be in Indianapolis for the last 2 days. And so she's like, you always doing this. And so she changed my flight, all of the arrangements, so I could get on an earlier flight to get here to be in this place for tonight. And so it's a joy to be in church. And so the plane lands this afternoon. I zoom home, change clothes, get out of my travel clothes, shower, boom, boom, grab something quick to eat, drive in here praying that the Merrimack Tunnel is not backed up. And God's favor was with me at the tunnel. Your pastor calls and say, hey man, how you looking? I said, man, I'm coming through the tunnel right now. And it's interesting, as I get off the exit on Mercury and I'm approaching the light at Armstead, right up the street. I'm at the light in the turn lane. There's a car in front of me. And I hear what I'm thinking is a car backfiring at the intersection. And I look up, just as I'm on my way here, guys jump out of a car, all in black, mask on their face, and they're shooting at the car coming across the intersection. And immediately my heart freezes, because I'm literally watching 3 guys shooting in the middle of the intersection. And they're unloading at the car that's going in the direction that we're getting ready to turn in. And so immediately the car in front of me speeds off, makes the U-turn, and I hit the gas, making the U-turn. And as I look out of my rearview mirror, I see the car airbags eject, and the car is in the middle of the intersection. And I promise you, the person didn't make it. Doors open. And in that moment, my heart is racing. My heart is racing. I don't know where to turn to get to the church but one way. I don't know where to go, so I put the church's address. It sends me around Colonial, Coliseum Drive, all the way around. I call my wife, and I say, you would not believe what I just witnessed on my way to church. And so the wonderful lady opened the door for me as I came in. In my heart, in my mind, I can't get this image out of my mind. And as I'm sitting there, it is the worship that brings calm, that reminds me that his goodness and his mercy are following me. And so it brought new meaning when I heard your pastor say, I was glad when they said unto me. Let us come into the house of the Lord. I'm glad that I wasn't on my way to the club or anywhere else crazy. I was on my way to worship to remind me that my God is with me. And we should never take for granted the opportunities that we have to worship, to praise, to be mindful of the goodness of God, because how quickly things can change. So it's good to be in the house of the Lord. I'm going to say that again. It's good to be in the house of the Lord. And with that being said, I want to invite your attention to a passage of scripture out of the book of Daniel, chapter 6. I've been in Daniel for most of the summer, just in my reading and prayer time and teaching time. And I want to invite you today to jump in for a moment with me in the book of Daniel. I believe God has a word for us tonight. Daniel chapter 6, just to kind of help familiarize us with the passage, I just want to lift up verses 1 through 10, and I'm going to do my best to quickly summarize what's going on here in the life of Daniel in this 6th chapter. I'm reading today from the NIV translation, Daniel chapter 6, and we'll begin at verse 1. You got it? And it reads this way. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king may not suffer loss. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. So they could not find no corruption in him, because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." So the administrators and the satraps went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever." The royal administrators, the prefects, and the satraps, and advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repelled. So King Darius put the decree in writing. Here's the verse I want to anchor down on. Listen at verse 10. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room, where the windows were open towards Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. I want y'all to hear that again. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room, where the windows were open towards Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he has done before. For a little while, I just want to tag this text, and I want to talk about, for a little while tonight, a faith that won't flinch. A faith that won't flinch. Historically, the 6th chapter of Daniel has been a chapter that couches a story that has strengthened and encouraged the faith of believers for centuries. Some of the stories that had been passed down from generation to generation in the chronicles and the scrolls throughout the lineage of the people of faith, couched within it one of this particular stories that we have come as a people of faith to love and appreciate. Within this 6th chapter, it is the story that has encouraged many of us when you found yourself in vacation Bible school or a Sunday school class, or it's one of the stories that if you've ever opened up a children's Bible or children's book, the pictures and the images of Daniel and the lion's den has been something that has encouraged believers for centuries. In order to appreciate it in a greater sense, you must put it in a larger context in the life of Daniel. Daniel, who was taken with a group of other young Hebrews, when you read, started in chapter 1, they were taken from Jerusalem, from their home, into exile as young prisoners under, at that time, King Nebuchadnezzar. These young men were taken in their teens, between the ages of like 13 and 17. They were taken as hostages, taken as prisoners under King Nebuchadnezzar to begin to live their lives as slaves in Babylon. What's interesting, when we first are introduced to Daniel, he's in his teens, but presently in this chapter, about chapter 6, Daniel now is roughly somewhere between the ages, as scholars suggest, between the ages of 70 and 80 years old. What's interesting, he's taken into exile as a teen, but there is a powerful theme that runs throughout the book of Daniel, that it becomes a salient theme that encourages us as Christians and believers and people of faith as we glean from the life of Daniel. Daniel taken as a teen into a system, into a structure that is now designed to oppress him and enslave him. But one of the powerful things we see happening, because of Daniel's unwavering commitment and loyalty to his God, God is loyal to Daniel as well. And in a system that is designed to oppress and keep Daniel in bondage, we see Daniel persevering and prospering because of the power of God that is at work in his life. Now I'm gonna say that again. He's taken as a prisoner, as a hostage, and put in a context that is designed for him not to prosper. But because of his loyalty, allegiance, and unwavering commitment to his God, he perseveres and prospers in a place that is designed to oppress him. And so from the time he's a teenager, in an environment and a culture that is not receptive to his God, Daniel, by his convictions of faith, makes up his mind that even in a climate and a culture that is not receptive to his God, he's going to live out his faith in a bold and courageous way. I think it helps us. I think it helps us because what I want to suggest today is we live in that kind of world. You and I live in that kind of world where it is not popular to be a believer. It is not popular to be people of faith, and you and I have to contend with a lot in the culture that is not receptive to the word and the will of God. It is not receptive to the things of God. And you and I, as people of faith, have to boldly live out our convictions in a hostile environment because the world does not readily embrace the things of God. But Daniel helps us. Daniel helps us that if you make up in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit that you are going to boldly and courageously live out your faith and your life for God, that what you will see is a God who would demonstrate his loyalty, his commitment, and his allegiance to you. Let the church say amen. If you are committed to God, what I want you to understand, if you make the decision as a young person, as a man, as a woman, as a family, that we are going to live out our lives for Jesus Christ, and we're going to say like the prophet, as for me and my house, we are going to serve God. I just want to check the house real quick. Is there anybody even in here tonight that's made up in their mind that you're going to live your life according to the will and the way of God? And Daniel helps us. He helps us to see tonight how you and I can have a faith that doesn't flinch. That when things come our way and when we find ourselves dealing with difficulties and we find ourselves dealing with challenges, what Daniel shows us is that when you and I make up in our mind that we gonna ride with God, that we're going to go with God, you and I can have the kind of faith that won't flinch. And I want to let you know, you get to this kind of faith as we started walking with Daniel. Watch this, y'all. This kind of faith has been developed in Daniel since he was a teenager. You don't get to what happens in chapter 6 and make it through what happens in chapter 6 if God has not been strengthening your faith. Are you with me? You don't get the lion's den kind of faith if you haven't seen God prove himself in your life time after time after time and after time again. So I know there are persons who got baptized tonight, and I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your journey. I'm excited because you beginning an exciting journey of watching God begin to prove himself in your life. And from this point, your faith is going to get strengthened and stronger. Do I have any witnesses in here? I need some people right now to help me encourage some new believers. Just keep riding with God and keep trusting God. And what you're going to see is your faith get stronger and your faith grow. And you're going to see God prove himself in your life time after time. Here we are. Daniel now is roughly about 70, 80 years old. The Bible tells us that here now in this season of Daniel's life, he has gone through 3 different kings, Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, and now Darius is in charge. Daniel has faithfully served in all of these administrations, and God has advanced him and promoted him in these hostile environments. Now, Daniel and 2 other persons are now placed as administrators in the court of Darius, so that the text says that the king will not suffer loss. They're put as administrators to oversee the affairs of the king, to administrate, to oversee. And it's interesting that this verse, I want to encourage you by verse number 3, it says, now Daniel distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities, that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Some of your translations may read verse 3 this way. It says, because Daniel had an excellent spirit in him. Some of your translations may read that. Because Daniel has an excellent spirit in him, the king decides that he is going to promote Daniel because Daniel has an excellent spirit. Before I give you this first observation of the text, I just want to ask the question. How many of you in here want to be blessed? You want to be blessed? Here's my question for you. Are you blessable? I know we want to be blessed. We want to be blessed. But here's the flip side of the other side of the coin. The question is, are you blessable? Notice how promotion and opportunity comes to Daniel. Because Daniel has an excellent spirit in him, the king decides he is going to promote Daniel. Daniel doesn't get promoted because he has a poor work ethic. He doesn't get promoted because he got a bad attitude. The opportunity comes because he has an excellent work ethic, he has a good attitude, and he has an excellent spirit about him. Now promotion and opportunity comes to him. Take that home. Because of that, the other guys who are in the same position, they don't like the fact that Daniel is about to get promoted. So what do? They say, we got to find something that we can use against Daniel to block his promotion. Here's the first thing I want you to write down if you're taking notes. Faithful living anticipates opposition. Faithful living anticipates opposition. Here Daniel is going about working in an excellent way. He didn't ask for promotion. He didn't ask for anything from the king. He's just doing his job. He's serving well, and he's doing it in an excellent way, right? The king decides that he is going to promote Daniel because of his excellent qualities, his great work ethic, and his great attitude. And now the other guys, they start hating on Daniel because of the excellent spirit that he's displaying. And they go to the extent where they say, we're going to find something that we can use against Daniel to block his promotion. Here it is. I want to tell somebody, Daniel's excellence provoked jealousy. His excellence provoked jealousy and birthed haters. So much to the point that they now want to attempt to block the promotion that the king wants to give to him. And the way they're going to do it is they say, we're going to find something we can use against them. Can I suggest to you, watch this, y'all. And so this is what they do. They start looking. They start searching. They go on his Instagram, go on his Facebook. They start scrolling. They go on his TikTok, go on his Twitter. Watch this. And they can't find anything. So this is what they say. We can't find anything. So if we're going to get him, we're going to have to use his God to get him. Can I say, if whatever your enemy tries to do to you, let it be a lie. Can I encourage us tonight to live in such a way that the enemy, we don't give the enemy any ammunition to use against us? They're looking, they're searching, they're trying to get some Daniel, and they can't get anything on him. And so the only thing they say that they can use against Daniel is his faith in his God. You and I, as believers, must expect that we are going to have to deal with oppositions as we live out our faith and trust in God. See, sometimes it's not the fact that you're doing anything wrong that causes the enemy to want to mess with you. It may just be because you're living right. Isn't that what we see with Job? The enemy is trying his best to knock us off course, to get us distracted. But you and I got to be bold and courageous as we live out our faith and expect, look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, expect opposition. And so here's what they do. They say, we're going to have to use his faith in order to get something on him. So they go to the king. They go to the king and they manipulate the king. They go to the king and they manipulate him. And they say, King, some of the other advisors and administrators, we all got together and we think we came up with a great idea. Here's the idea. We think that you for 30 days ought to pause any other worship, any other honor to any other God or any other human being except you, King, for 30 days. That you should be honored, you should be celebrated, you should be, King, worshiped for 30 days. And if anybody else calls on another God or prays to another God or worships another God or pays any allegiance to another person, King, we want you to sign a decree that they will be put to death through the lion's den. The king says, you know what, I think that's a great idea. They manipulate the king because of the king's own insecurities. They manipulate the king because it's his own insecurities, and because he wants worship, he wants honor, he accepts this idea that they give to him, and they make the king sign it, seal it with his signet ring. Now, the importance of that, once the king signs something with his signet ring, it becomes irrevocable. So the king signs it into law. It's publicly announced. Everyone knows. But verse 10, y'all, is interesting, isn't it? The king has just now signed an edict saying that no other God, no other person for 30 days shall be worshiped, any honor or any allegiance for 30 days. And if you are caught worshiping any other God except King Darius, calling on any other name except King Darius for 30 days, you will be put to death. Verse 10 has new meaning for me. Because, Pastor, it says, verse 10, look at it, y'all, it's right there. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, it's public, y'all. What does he do? He goes home. He goes upstairs. The window is open. And he begins to pray, as the text says, as he has done before. I don't think y'all got that. I don't think y'all got it. Daniel has just learned that there is a public decree that if anyone prays, anyone worships, anyone gives any honor or allegiance to any other god, that the king has just signed an order for you to be put to death by the lion's den. And the text tells us that Daniel goes home, goes upstairs, not with the curtains closed. The curtains are open, and he gets down on his knees as he has done before, as he's prayed 3 times a day. Now, come on, let's be real. Come on, y'all, now. Come on now. Most of us in this room with a death sentence public, so we gonna act like that. Most of your coworkers don't even know you're a Christian. You don't even talk about your faith around your friends. If we were to search your social media pages, how strong is your witness? And there's a death sentence? And Daniel goes home with this decree being public, goes upstairs, opens the window, opens the curtains, and he begins to pray as he did 3 times a day on his knees, giving thanks to his God, just as he's done before. What's the point? Here it is. I'm glad you asked. If we're going to have the kind of faith that doesn't flinch, one, we got to understand that we got to anticipate opposition. Secondly, we got to practice consistent devotion. Do you see the fact that Daniel doesn't flinch? He went right on home, right on upstairs. He has consistently prayed 3 times a day since he was a boy. And even though now there's a death sentence for anyone who practices their faith and publicly displays their faith, Daniel is consistent in his faith. Daniel's private devotion is unshaken. His private devotion is unshaken. Just as he's come, Daniel has built up the regiment and the routine, and he's made prayer such an habitual habit of his life that even now with a death sentence, because it is a habitual habit of his life, he still is consistent in his prayer life. It's interesting, y'all getting ready to go into a time of prayer. What maybe God is trying to do in some of us and some of you over this course of this is build in the habit of constantly seeking him. Not just when you get in trouble, not just when things are going bad and going south in your life, but maybe God is trying to call you in this season to this time of prayer is because he's trying to birth in you a level of consistency that regardless of what's going on in the world, of what's going on in your life, that you will become so disciplined in the things that's going to make you stronger. Isn't it interesting that we complain about not seeing the power and the results in our faith and in our walk with God? It's because many of us haven't worked in building in the habits that's going to make us spiritually stronger. And what Daniel shows us is the discipline and the regimen and the routine of constantly seeking God. And so even now with the king putting out this crazy edict, guess what? Daniel shows us the power of a consistent prayer life. And because of that, his consistency, look at him and say, neighbor, we got to get consistent. His consistent private life shapes his public life. What he's doing consistently in private is shaping his public life. I want to encourage somebody, don't alter your devotion to God to avoid discomfort. Don't alter your devotion to God to avoid discomfort. Daniel, like many, could have easily just said, you know what, I ain't gonna pray for 30 days to avoid running the risk of putting his life in jeopardy. But Daniel chose, this is what I love about and what I glean from his life, Daniel chose faithfulness more than he did safety. Daniel chose obedience over self-preservation. He went right on home, goes right upstairs. He don't close the curtains. He keeps the curtains open, looking towards Jerusalem. He's been praying 3 times a day since he was a kid. And he's not going to break his loyalty and his allegiance and his devotion and his discipline to God, even with the death sentence. So here's what happened. And the enemy, watch this. Here's what gets me, y'all. The enemy knows that Daniel is consistent. Because what do? They know that boy gonna pray. They already said the only thing we're gonna be able to use against Daniel is his faith. Because we know Daniel loves God. We know Daniel is consistent. Can the same be said about you? Woo. So here's happening. Daniel's upstairs praying. They know he's upstairs praying, and they go and they point it out. Then they go back to King Darius and say, hey, King, didn't you pass a decree that for the next 30 days, no other God shall be worshiped, no other God shall be prayed to? And the king said, yeah, I signed it, made it law. They said, well, your boy, you know, Daniel, your favorite, that you want to promote, he's up there praying. The text says, as I give you the clip note version, the text says, in that moment, the king knew this wasn't about him. He knew he had been tricked. He knew he had been deceived. And the text tells us that when you read the rest of those verses, that the king is trying to do his best to come up with a way to see how he can reverse it, but he's already sealed it. He's already sealed it. And so that means he knows that now by the law that he sanctioned, Daniel is going to face the lion's den. And so when you read it, read on down, verse 14, as we get ready to close. When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. Then the men went as a group to the king Darius and said to him, "Remember, your majesty, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no decree or edict that the king issues can be changed." So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, watch this, "May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you." I'm going to read that again. Listen what a pagan king says to faithful Daniel about his God. The king says to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation may not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace, spent the night without any eating, without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. Here it is. So once the king knows he's been deceived, he's trying his best, y'all, to figure out how he can reverse it. And I want to tell you, the king couldn't change it. But y'all, I'm glad he wasn't in control of it. He couldn't change it, but he ain't in control of it. Can you just encourage somebody right now that's sitting next to you that might be facing something right now, and remind them that God is in control? You may be facing some obstacles. You may be dealing with some situations. And I want you to be encouraged that as long as God is in control, as long as your God is sitting on the throne, whatever obstacle, whatever situation you may be facing, just encourage somebody and just tell them God is in control. God is in control. And as long as God is in control, you can, here's the last thing. Because God is in control, here's what we got to do if we're going to have faith that won't flinch. Tell your neighbor, neighbor, trust God for the outcomes. It's interesting, y'all, when you look at King Darius and you look at Daniel. Once King Darius understands that he's been deceived, he's now facing this situation that he really don't want to see Daniel die. He really don't want to see Daniel go into the lion's den, but he can't change it. And so the text says that all that night the king won't eat. The king don't want any entertainment, and the king can't sleep. The king is stressing. The king is worried because he doesn't know how it is going to turn out. Now, see, there are two responses here. Daniel is silent. We don't hear anything from Daniel. Daniel is in the lion's den. But the responses of the king is like a lot of us when stuff is going on. You can't eat. Huh? You're stressing. You can't sleep. Isn't that some of our responses? But notice what he says, what the king says to Daniel. May your God. See, the king is stressing because it ain't his God. He doesn't have a relationship with Daniel's God. So he says, hey, I know you're a person of faith. I know you've been trusting in Yahweh God. I know you have a history and a resume with this God. So may your God, whom you continually serve, continually rescue you. He doesn't have, y'all, the same history that Daniel has with his God. So he can't stand in faith. He can't stand in faith in this situation because he doesn't have that kind of history that Daniel has with his God. That's why he's up all night. That's why he can't eat. That's why he's worried about how it's going to turn out, because he doesn't have any history with God. But I just want to ask a question as we get ready to go tonight. Does anybody have any history with God in this room? So watch this. Here it is. Here it is. Look at this. Look at this. Let's go home. Look at this. And so when you get the verse, and verse 19 says, at the first light of dawn, the king got up, hurried to the lion's den. He don't know what's going to happen to Daniel. He's been worried about him. He didn't want to see him die. But he's never known anybody to go into the lion's den and survive. Huh? They put people in the lion's den to die, y'all. Nobody never survived the lions. And he's worried. But he knows Daniel got a relationship with this God. And he gets up early the next morning and he hurries to the lion's den. Look at what verse 20 says. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in anguish. In an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, watch this, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? Verse 21, and Daniel answered. Y'all will get it. Turn your neighbor and say, and he answered. He answered, has your God been able to rescue you? And Daniel answered him. Look at your neighbor, tell neighbor, trust God for the outcomes. Trust God for that. I want to remind somebody on a Wednesday night that we have a God that is still shutting the mouths of lions. Isn't that good news? So whatever lion you're facing, whatever lion you're up against, we have a God that is still shutting the mouths of lions. And so in this season, what I want to encourage you, whatever your lion is you stand in faith, and you have the kind of faith that's not going to flinch. Whether it's job loss, whether it's sickness, whether it's something going on in your family, you got to stand in faith and trust God, because he's the same God. So trust God for the outcomes. And Daniel goes into how can you go into a lion's den and believe that you can make it out? You have that kind of faith because, Pastor, he's the same God in chapter 2. When I was a young adult and I went to the fiery furnace, he's the same God that brought me out of that. And so whatever you face in this season, what God is building in you is the kind of faith that won't flinch. And so you can trust God for the outcomes, because you've already seen him work in your life in your past. pass. The king didn't know how it was going to turn out. But Daniel knew. He's the same God that brought me from Jerusalem into Babylon. And he's seen me since I was in the teens to my present. He brought me through the fiery furnace. He brought me through crazy King Belshazzar. And now he gonna bring me through this. So as we stand, as Pastor comes, can you just take a moment and just extend your hands to God? And ask God, God, give me the kind of faith that's not gonna flinch. When unexpected things come my way, build in me the kind of faith that's not gonna flinch. So God, that's why my prayer life, I don't want to pray when problems come. I want to already be prayed up. So when they come, I already got prayer on it because I'm in a posture of prayer. So right now, God, there's somebody facing something even now. And we make the declaration that we're going to trust you. We trust you. I don't know how it's going to work out, but God, I've already seen you work miracles in my life. And so even in this moment, I'm going to stand still and see your salvation. Just right now with the fruit of your lips all over this place, just begin to declare, God, I trust you. Yeah. I trust you. I trust you. I trust you for the outcome. And because I trust you for the outcome, God, I'm praising you in advance. I'm praising you in advance because you're the God that's still shutting the mouths of lions.